Good morning, teams. Dave King, Chairman of Triple Crown Sports. This is our 5th update of Fastpitch coaches throughout America. Today we have three pieces for you to be able. Slight technical feedback problems. We have three sections of this presentation today and conversation. One is the actual research that we just finished that will be very telling. That explains a little bit about the industry and where we're at right now. The second one that we have in this scenario is the part where our college or our club panelists come on board and talk with us about what they see in their area. And the third is more of a report on the states and where we see them right now. And then we added a little bit of the team meeting sample you would have with your parents right now, to kind of walk them through the uncertainty of this situation and what goes on in it. So from that standpoint, I would go ahead and take us to our research and our panelists. Today we have Tony Rico, the California representative of the Firecrackers. We have Scott Smith from Texas, representing the Bombers organization. We have Kevin Shelton, representing Texas Glory out of the Dallas area. Jim Abbott, representing New Lenox out of the greater Chicago area. We've got Greg Schnudi, representing the East Cobb Bullets out of the East Cobb, or the Atlanta area. We've got TJ Gills, representing the Tampa Mustangs out of the Florida area. And we've got Mick Bowman. Mick is representing the Oregon area. And so with those things in mind, we'll kind of move forward and start our discussion. Our research, and I'll pull it up so we can walk through it. We had 300 clubs report in as this morning. Heavy load out of California, which is representative. And go ahead and scan that on down for me, Thomas, and take it to the bottom numbers. You'll see a distribution throughout the country represented to get us up to our numbers of what we have involved. And then the next question we asked was which age group, and we have a heavier distribution of 14s and 18s in this answer poll. And then we asked the same questions we asked about in the COVID. And I'm going to kind of bounce it out to our group, and I'm going to start with our California representative, Tony, and say, Tony, the disease itself, what has it felt like, or do you have names to it in your organization yet, and what does it mean to your organization as we sit here today?
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate you asking me to be on this morning. We're entering, I would call it kind of a less fearful stage. You know, the policies and everything else that we're all waiting to be released, hopefully are on a timeline that's going to allow us to start getting outside at some point, small groups, to start to practice. We don't know when that is, but overall, you don't see the level of fear at the grocery stores, socially. So that's been an interesting thing to watch. There's a feeling that we're getting close, but outside of that feeling, Dave, there's not a whole lot. We're all preparing in our own ways. You had just mentioned you have all the different types of plans for whatever we can do, but overall, it seems like people are ready to go. We're just waiting for the gates to open.
If you look at that, Tony, that number coincides where we had 45% that were extremely stressed and tense right now. That's dropped 10% in just 5 weeks to where we're down in the 30s with the representation of fear. From the standpoint of the Chicagoland area, Jim, what is, and I'm just talking about the disease right now, and let's stay with the disease the best we can. What's the sentiment about the disease itself? Not playing ball, but the disease.
Yeah, good morning. Here in the Chicago area, obviously we've been through some rough times in the past month, but it seems like it's starting to flatten out. The curve is flattening out, and we're getting to the point, like Tony says, less fearful. Good weather started to set in last week a little bit, so people are getting out more. The roads for those first 7 weeks or so were pretty empty, and in the last week, it looks like it's ramped up a little bit, and everybody's ready to go. Just waiting on the government to let the gates fly open.
Okay. Let's move on down to the financial picture right now and just kind of hit it a little bit on where we're at with the financial report of the disease. And so what we see in here is some really interesting numbers, which is almost 50% didn't change a thing at the bank account, at the job, with the team, with the club. And so perspective there, that's nice to see. And actually, when we started down this path, we kind of felt like that would be a number. The next one is on no, stay right there, Thomas. Just stay on that information. The next answer in there is I'm challenged, but still making yes decisions on things that matter. So meaning their finances have changed, but things have still mattered. And Kevin, from your standpoint, how would you define the financial picture of your club and your team sentiment, and your players, those types of things?
I think you're right on the money mostly. There are lots of teachers and government workers and things like that, and big time execs, and they've been unaffected generally. And so we're, if I look at kind of my organizational payments, right, and we're spread across the country, at the end of April, we got about 40% of our teams to pay their dues. And for May, we got just under 50%. So that sentiment is, it's coming back our way and they're preparing to play. Our apparel sales have gone back up. So people are getting engaged. I think in this state, and I think when you talk to Scott, you'll see it's a little bit different, depending on what your oil relationship is, right? That has a big impact as oil has gone in the tank. So that does impact people a little differently. I would like to comment on the state of how we feel about the disease here. And I would describe in North Texas, the feeling as absolutely fearless. No one, very few people concerned. Fearless.
Meaning if I went to a Walmart, it didn't look like anything abnormal was happening?
You be lucky to find a parking spot. Yeah.
Okay.
Home Depot, Lowe's. Yeah.
Mick, how would you see the disease and finances of your program and your team and your picture out in Oregon right now?
So I think what we're seeing is it's pretty consistent with what others are seeing as well as far as the disease goes. That we've moved past the stage of everybody reporting on the number of new cases every single day and moved on to sort of the economic impacts. The roads are starting to pick up. The traffic is back to its normally bad state, or getting pretty close to it. But on the finance things, everybody's going to be affected a little bit by it. I think the biggest question there that people are still asking is, how are we going to make this happen? There's a very positive look forward to starting to understand how we can work with the disease and be successful as softball players.
Okay.
A very forward-looking attitude right now.
So if you look at these numbers right here, 7% are financially beyond even making a decision on softball. And that's our club coaches and how they feel. And yet we still got enough people trying to prioritize that. And I think that is the big swing this month, is prioritization. Let's go to the next question, which I like the progress we're making here, which is, are we practicing? So if you look at the gradation here, yes, entire roster, 1 out of 6. Yes, 5 or less, add another 1 out of 6. So 2 out of 6 now, and then add another 10 people, 3 out of 6. So half the marketplace is practicing, and the other half is not. So I'm going to turn this over to Greg in Atlanta and say, what is the current situation of practices in Georgia and in that region, and what's your take on trying to schedule games against teams that have never even practiced?
Well, we've been out the last 3 weekends. This past weekend, we were out for 2 days. We had 2 of our 16-year-old teams out, and our gold team was out. We had 45 kids there. We worked out Saturday and Sunday. We practiced, and then we scrimmaged both days. There was absolutely no concern on the parents nor the players' part. No one wore a mask. Everybody just enjoyed the sport. It looked like last summer with the way everyone was sitting together, talking, and enjoying the sport. And when it ended on Sunday afternoon, there was absolutely no concern. And all anybody wanted to know was, when and where are we going to play? And how do we do this going forward as we have in the past? So in our area of the country, there's no concern. And as Kevin said a while ago, they just want to play ball. And we're the same way with the Home Depots and the Lowe's packed. and trying to open up. Our restaurants still aren't open, which is amazing to me. Just fast food drive-throughs is open. So we still got a ways to go, but there's no concern about playing the game of softball from here on in our area.
Scott, how would you deem it in the Houston area with the financial struggles of the oil field and now practicing? How would you weigh those two questions right now?
Yeah, Dave, I appreciate you having me on today. The oil thing, Kevin hit on it. It's a real thing. I mean, there's people that are out of their jobs, but I think they value the game of softball and its outlet as part of their life and being able to have some normalcy. They're looking at finding ways to make that happen. And I think the fact that we regionalized our play a little bit gives them a little peace of mind, knowing their financial challenges that they're going to experience over the course of the summer. But I think the sentiment is that softball is going to come back, and so is oil. And so they're hopeful in both cases. I'll tell you, I've heard the Home Depot thing. I told the guy at Home Depot this morning they ought to have graduation in here. Just let them walk down the aisle and call their name out over the intercom, because ain't nobody scared about being in Home Depot. So, yeah, everything's opening up pretty quick. But the financial thing is real. But I think people are trying to find ways to deal with that.
Okay, let me go back to Tony here and ask him, because California, you're obviously challenged on practicing. You see any breakthrough on the practice side to get kids out on the field in smaller groups, or do you feel like there's any positives going to be in that space?
The general communication, as I said before, is that we're getting close. I know that there are some counties, Dave, that are allowing some type of activity. We're kind of holding steady, though. You know, the urge and ready to jump out of the gate, but we encourage all of our teams to be very smart about it, make sure that everything is okay. We want to warn them that we don't want there to be a further consequence with cities, recreation services, and things like that. So we don't encourage squatting, going out there and enforcing our rights. County by county, a couple of them, but still not much. You're not seeing many teams on the field, nothing like that. We're all waiting. We have been completely shut down. We're doing individual workouts only, trying to abide by the rules. But we are just waiting and anticipating.
With all this complete shutdown, Tony, are you feeling any financial effects in your organization and your club structure right now that are substantive?
Yeah, well, you feel it from anything that's bigger than a small size. So anybody that's running a facility, any restaurants, everything like that, that's still there, and that pressure can only be there so long before we have to rebalance things. Combine that though with what the other messages that you're hearing, and that is that people are excited. People are excited as far as softball goes. We're ready to go. So I think there was a responsibility, and people wanted to know that leadership was doing the right thing, Dave. I think these conversations have been huge as far as letting Softball America know that the right type of leadership is there to have this communication. So it's balancing all the things that we should be doing, making our families feel right and justified, that we're not just pushing them forward with no wondering about their expenses at all. So it's actually been a good time to create some good communication and then re-strategize for in a lot of different areas.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the next spot and question 6, which is what dates are set for organized competition in your state? And so we've got a variety of answers here. If you look at this June 1 window and now, we're about 7% up right now. We've got 14% that'll be on board June 1, another 22% June 15th. But I think the bigger number here is the uncertain number. Still half the market. There's no certainty on games. And so if I organize the team to practice, where's my certainty on games? And so that presentation is very different. If I throw that back to Jim, I say, what are you presenting about certainty to the games and practices for your teams, Jim?
For our teams and for actually everybody in our area, we're just like Tony. We are pretty much shut down right now. We are still at the stay-at-home effect until the 29th of this month. But as far as practices go, we haven't been outside and practicing at all. We won't get out and practice until after the 29th, and we'll do that in small groups. Game situations, we have no idea when the state's going to say, go ahead, you can play games. Could be July 1st as far as we know. And that's kind of what I think we're looking at, pretty much July 1st in our state and in our area. If we go half hour east to Indiana, half hour from my house, listen, they're ready to go June 15th, and you're ready to fly out of the gate. But you know what this has done, it's given us a great opportunity to communicate with our parents and with our players on a whole nother level that we never have. So the communication factor has been outstanding. Financially hasn't affected everybody as much, but you know what, we're moving forward and we're ready to go, but we're going to try to get out and practice in small groups starting after the 29th.
Super. Let's go down to the next one, Thomas, and just go into this one, current player loss. And so we see these different as we go. And I would tell you, once a state comes on board, I'm seeing a trend. Once they come on board and they actually have some ball games, do you start seeing some of these kids uncover? Is there, I'm going to jump back over to Kevin on this one. Are you uncovering some kids that we've lost in our organization? We've already lost 2 off our 18A and gold rosters and 2 off our 16 rosters, which predominantly are financial reasons. Kevin, have you seen anything in your rosters of kids just saying it's too uncertain, the season's too short, or anything of that nature?
So yes, so we have, I lost an East Texas kid. And to be fair, I don't know the exact reasons I lose them. I try not to put that pressure on them to give me an answer, because typically the answer I get is not the real answer. So I stopped worrying about that a whole bunch. And then I lost 2 Kansas kids as well. So that, for me, that really makes me go from 39 to 36, but it's still, so I'm okay, but I have lost 10% of my roster. Yeah.
So we are seeing some effect. Are there any of you others? Stick up your hand if you've seen a loss of players at all. And it's Kevin and me are the only ones in the structure. That's good. That's a good report. We'll move on down to the next one and say, have you built a schedule? Wow. So that number one question that we ask the state is, when are you going to let us play? And the number one question we get asked is, what's the schedule? So if we jump over there, Mick, what are you doing for scheduling? What are you telling your kids in Oregon about a schedule and what they're going to do and where they're going to play?
So, in the Northwest, most of the major counties are still shut down. A lot of the rural counties are open. So one of the things that we have adding uncertainty is the disparity and then what we're allowed to do in different areas that way. So we had a great parent meeting last night, and one of the things we talked about was just possibilities. That these are the dates that we're setting aside. These are the schedules for the tournaments that we have. Everything's going to be shifted back at least a month, and we have to be flexible with it. We may not have more than a week or 2 notice about changes in status on practices, or on tournaments. The other thing is, taking a page out of Scott and Kevin's book is that we're starting to work on putting together local league games, which give us a lot more control over scheduling and maintenance and policies and procedures. So substituting some of those tournaments for organized friendlies.
But Scott, just transferred it back out to you. Do you feel like you have a printed schedule you can play with starting June 1, June 15 on?
Yes, sir. We've got a pretty well set schedule now that we have a definitive start date for our summer. And what it's going to end up turning out is we're probably going to play a little bit more by doing what we did. We may play even more this summer than maybe we would have. So yeah, we've got a schedule, and it helps having a start date. So I feel for the guys on here that are just standing there waiting for that go ahead date. I feel for them, because I know as soon as they can get that established, they'd be in the same boat. They can figure out how to move forward.
It's really tough to look at a marketplace that basically says 60% of the people don't have a schedule yet. And when I look at this room and of audience, I would say there's the Texas, you're fortunate. The rest of us are hopeful, meaning we have set aside dates. Let me go to the next set of answers here, and I'm going to roll in. This is real telling right now. And so I'm going to start with this 10% number down here at the bottom and just say, to someone that usually flies a lot and goes a lot of places and does a lot of stuff like this, Greg, If 1 out of 10 travel teams that fly on an average of 2 to 3 times a year are now saying they're going to get in an airplane, what does that mean to you? And does that look like you, or are you different than that, Greg Snooty?
Well, we've had 4 major trips this summer, 2 to California, 1 out to Colorado, and 1 to Portland. We canceled 3 of those 4, and we've had to pull back both their schedules. Give you a side story. One of my flights to California got diverted, and it took me an extra 6 hours to get to Orange County now through Salt Lake and so forth. So we've just removed ourselves from all the national tournament showcases, and we'll play in the Southeast. There's a lot of teams down here. We're in the process now of forming the Southeastern League to go along with the Texas League and the West. So we'll be putting that together over the weekend and be able to announce that we're going to play basically within the 5 or 6 or 7 states of the Southeast and do it that way. If you have not, I know PGF is an issue right now. There's some people say it's canceled. Some people says no. We don't know. We haven't done anything in that regard. We just kind of let we're on hold there. But we'll stay in the Southeast and play this summer.
So you look like that model then, with 1 chance left of all your 4 to get on a plane, is what you're saying.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tony, from where you guys sit, you're used to all of us coming to you, and every once in a while you coming out and visiting us. How does that affect you that we may not be giving you a big hug this summer in California? What's your thoughts there?
Greg, all right. Dave, we just tried to make a decision that allowed us to find a pocket that's realistic. So, we started to feel like we were in that ping pong game of playing with dates, how people were feeling. So we just decided to make a decision for this time period to keep it home, re-strategize. I think that once everything rebalances, we'll be fine getting back. In fact, we're excited about the future and some of the new opportunities that are being created. So right now, we just erred on the side of just keeping it home, minimizing expenses, kind of getting out of that pocket of just seeing where that line is, a little left, a little right. I know our families are ready to do what we would tell them to do, but it's making the decisions that are in their best interest as well. So we just decided to can it, keep it at home. And like you're hearing, there's a lot of good things happening regionally as far as the communications and structures.
Thank you. Jim, from your standpoint up in the Chicagoland area, does this resound at all to you, this information?
I think a lot of our teams and a lot of the way we structured things, a lot of our younger teams especially, they're going to stay local. They're going to stay regionally. They're not going anywhere out of the Midwest. Our older teams, our 16s and our 18s, are still going to travel, but we had a couple plane trips scheduled that we cut all but 1 out. So we're kind of figuring the same as everybody else. Like, hey, let's stay as close to home as we can. Especially our younger teams are a little more affected by this. Our older teams, they're fearless and ready to go.
Let me bounce and Mick and say, and looking at this, what do you see in it, Mick, for you?
So, I know we're a little bit more challenged with the regional opportunities than some of the others on the call right now. But in order for us to do this, we're going to have to get out of the Northwest at least a little bit. But we're back trying to pick things that are at least reasonable car drives. I mean, we can make the drive to Colorado if we have to. And there are a few of our kids that are planning on flying, but basically for travel, what we've done is say that each of the players are on their own for making the decisions for what they're comfortable with. We're trying to keep the choice of tournament something that you could conceivably drive to. And I think the other thing is that we're trying to be very flexible with the kids, that we're basically saying, if you're comfortable, then let's do it. If you're not comfortable, we'll find you a local tournament. So splitting up the team into sort of a team that's comfortable going and a team that's comfortable staying has actually been one of the things that's helped us a lot, coordinating the travel pieces of it.
Very good. Let's roll to the next question, which is, are you planning a heavier fall? And so when I look at this and say, gosh, 40% are already saying yes. August through November is going to have more in it. and what does more in it mean to people? And so, Scott, you had alluded to the fact that there was going to be more. Is this what you mean? August on is more, or what did you mean?
No, what I meant by the statement before is I think our summer's going to have more, just more opportunities because of us creating the schedule that we did. But going in relation to the question you're asking, the fall, I think our fall, and I speak for Texas, and Kevin can validate this, our fall's pretty jammed in the first place. So it's hard to imagine that we would pile more into it. We have that little pocket of about 30 days in August that we have like transition with our seniors graduating and tryouts. And so I would assume, no question, that teams will be raring to start September 1 for the 2021 season. And it'll be just as packed as it always has been. I think it'll look pretty normal here in Texas.
Okay. Let me, and I'll just present that to you, that there is some uncertainty in those in there. But the sheer fact that 40% said there's going to be a little more in the fall means that we're going to see people have to make good for their upcoming seniors and juniors in pockets like Colorado, California, meaning those things have got to happen for them in the fall at a level that wasn't happening before. We go to the next decision and it'll kind of lead into a discussion here. The decision making has evolved in this thing where at first people thought it was sitting in a spot and then it was sitting in another spot. And I'm gonna go right here to Greg and just say, Greg, your governor came out and said, yeah, we're all roaring backlog, but there's no tournaments being played in Georgia today. And is the governor in charge of this, or who is in charge? Because most of us think, 2 out of 3 of us think the governor's in charge of this decision. What is happening in the Southeast?
Well, the governor's supposed to give us an answer next Friday, whether or not we can open up June 1st. So we'll wait and see how that goes. My personal feeling is that I think he will open it up and make it official, and that we'll be able to get out there in the month of June and start playing. I know that the first weekend of June, we were supposed to have Scenic City in Chattanooga, and then that got moved out to North Georgia, and that got stopped because the city fathers were concerned that the governor hadn't said, okay, do it. But I know the weekend after that, the second weekend of June, there's a showcase called Champions in Atlanta, which is a big deal, like Scenic City is. That's still on, ready to go as of yesterday. I checked with her, and everything's fine. So we're positive that we feel like the governor will open everything up by the end of next week. We'll be ready to rock and roll.
That's good to hear, because I know he jumped out there and everybody got hopeful, and then it just kind of stalled for a moment. Kevin, you guys got your governor to give a yes date to competitive. How did that happen?
Well, I think there was a lot of communication to him, but he also slow walked us. We all thought we'd be ready to rock by the 18th of May. And then we were all a bit surprised that we couldn't start practice till the 31st and then tournaments till the 15th. So he really put the brakes on us by like 30 days in our mind. So we're pleased that we're open and ready to go. He also has very limited restrictions on us. So now it's down to each city. And I know everyone's plowing through with their city and local, officials to make sure they have the protocols right. But I think the governor was predisposed to go that way because Louisiana and Oklahoma have been playing tournaments now for weeks. So I think he felt that pressure as well.
Okay, very good. Now I'm going to roll it into a new spot, and I'm going to kind of basically go through this state open concept that we have right now. So basically I see us in 3 groups of knowns, or now I'm going to say as close to knowing as possible, and meaning there are actual dates that get thrown around politically. And some of them have officially arrived with dates. And so right now we know open to play, and I'm going to add Louisiana. I didn't have it on the list, but Louisiana is open, right, Kevin? They are playing. Scott?
Yep. They're playing tournaments, yeah. Oklahoma and Louisiana. Arkansas.
And so I put a star on Wyoming because there's a pretty good chance there will be red ball fields in Wyoming to play on in the weeks to come for us, because they have protocols up there, 25 people on a diamond. They're not worried about the spectators as much. They want the diamond to be controlled. And there's a way to play. South Dakota's been open and never closed. Oklahoma is open and playing tournaments, and we've sent teams. Missouri has spots open, not completely all open, but there's definitely counties that are under that. Florida has counties coming on board this week with Brevard and the USSSA facility. And I believe anytime a county comes on board, the likelihood that a state follow is very high. The June 1st to June 15th that we see out there in the world are Arizona, Alabama, Texas, Nebraska, South Carolina, Iowa, Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, Rhode Island, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. These are states, West Virginia, Montana, Tennessee, that have done things that have either started to the June 15th or June 1st date or very close. And I'm going to get some corrections as we get feedback, because literally doing the research on your individual state right now is, even for you, for me from Colorado, trying to figure out where your state's at is very, very difficult. And so these are interpretations by either our staff or some of you that have talked with us or are reading. And so that gives us a pretty good group that we might have a quorum operating, and we might have most of the states surrounded with play somewhere. And so this cross the border to play, cross the border for business concept is real. And I think, Greg, I want to pull it to you. I do believe this is why Georgia retreated a little bit in the smaller towns, is that they were afraid people were going to flood in from all over to play ball. Is that not correct, or is that a poor assumption?
I don't know if that's been an issue. I don't have that feeling right now. I just think there's just some trepidation on what to expect, and the governor's taking it very slow and slowed us down a little bit. We thought we'd be open also, like Kevin said a couple of weeks ago, but that hasn't occurred. But I feel very positive by next Friday we're going to be open and ready to go.
So I'll put Georgia up there and say it's going to make it. Then I come over to the next set, which is we have all the things in place to be open in Colorado June 15th. But the sentiment of the next meeting on May 25th looks more like that. So you're starting to predict sentiment, cycles, phases, psychology surrounding turf, surrounding areas, North Carolina, Minnesota, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Virginia. And I would tell you that anytime I see one of these, I also am starting to see that the state is letting counties move to lead, remote counties. So they've broken, like Trump broken the states have broken their state up as we go on out. North Carolina, Nevada, all fit into this window of July 1. And if you look at that, you've got predominantly adding Louisiana to the open. You've got in the next 35, 40 days, some type of competitive situation to be defined. 25 or more, 50 or more, one ball diamond. We've still got all these interpretations. The nice one would be organized competition is a wording and we get bundled. But if we don't get bundled, we're in trouble. So we come to the possible question marks. On this list, we got California and Oregon. And Tony, interpret what you think you're seeing and hearing, because we're hearing that Orange County could be the leader in coming back out for competition. And what is your interpretation of the current situation?
My interpretation is on the hopeful side. If Orange County is, that's going to allow us some space to work into. Like I said, Dave, we're creative indoors right now. When they allow us to get out to an open space, we're going to work into practice. When they tell us we're okay to play, we're going to do that. I'm ready for an early announcement that we can get back on, or if we're shut down all summer, unfortunately, we're just going to try to get creative with this space. So hopefully Orange County is. I know that there's some good communication, and as I said earlier, it feels like we're getting closer to that. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe practice in the next 2 to 4 weeks. I'm not sure. We're just ready to adjust and move forward when we can.
Jim, you had mentioned that it could be far-reaching counties out of greater Chicago that get green-lighted by July 1. Do you really believe that, or do you have some proof in that?
It is interpretation from areas that are probably 2 miles outside the city of Chicago are that they are going to open. They've already kind of said to us, like, hey, plan on coming here, plan on playing. We are definitely going to open. So, Whether those counties themselves have gotten the okay from the governor, like, hey, numbers are way, way, way down. Like, go ahead, start working things in, start building things in, start opening things slowly. And hopefully outside of the Chicago area where there aren't as many people, we can get going. We won't mind taking that drive a couple of hours to go play a little bit.
Let me just for a second to all of you and say that we in Colorado have mountain communities, and in the mountain communities, there seems to be an innate fear to have us come from the flatlands on the other side of the mountains into their community with who we are. And so we're even seeing in some of our contractual relationships as we get ready to open to play a tournament June 15th, if the governor says yes, we're seeing some kickback from the community who has very low numbers for input. So I would urge you that there's some political work that has to be done in these smaller communities to get them to come in. And Greg said, no, that wasn't the case. I can personally attest to being on a city council meeting with a mountain community in Colorado, watching them say, no, we're not ready. Even if the state's ready, we don't want a bunch of Denver people driving over the mountain and bringing what they got to us. So there's states like this in the West, there's states in the Northeast like this where we've got some of this friction that we're going to have to deal with politically from that standpoint. And I would say in California, the likelihood that somebody come back and say, hey, Victorville and Bakersfield, it's so damn hot and it's so damn dry and windy, nothing can live here. Maybe we should be open. And then you're going to see the second round of this is, yes, we're ready to be open. Oh, maybe we don't want an influx of all kinds of people we're not ready for yet. So we have some other things we have to traffic through this as a group. I would tell you that I'm going to give our situation here in Colorado, and you can do what you want with it on this call, but we have a private facility here that we own. Triple Crown has three fields on it, and we could use it without public approval to do things, to lead things out. So we're able to lead practices out in the state of Colorado for private facilities and get a protocol that makes sense. We got some public areas open for practices, and yet I feel like most of them will be open for practices on May 25th. But for games, we weren't. And so as I told you last week, we put ourselves on the calendar, kept our tournament this weekend held here on our facility, kept it on the schedule, and watched the process exist. And basically, we received attention after writing the governor multiple times, writing the health department multiple times, and saying we have protocols that are more than acceptable for youth sports to play outside, particularly these two sports, not all of our sports, but baseball and softball. And we received a cease and desist. And so I want you to understand that it was never my intent to be fully arrested for anything. It was my intent to draw to conclusion that we had protocols that were safe, that could be witnessed by professionals that they were safe. And so we then communicated with the Attorney General's office, 5 lawyers on the call 2 days ago on Wednesday. It happened that fast. And we were able to negotiate with the Attorney General's office back and forth to the governor's office to do what I wanted to do, which was test an outdoor venue. From aerial to have aerial photos on it, to show the in and outs, to show exits to sit on, to show anything that would actually convince people that we had covered social distancing more than adequately, that this Diamond Sports was a gift to sports to get back out, and that our any park diagram could be used as a model for anybody to show. We're going to aerially film them. So they agreed, I agreed to pull down, they took away the cease and desist, and we agreed to run a test event here on Thursday. We'll then film it from an aerial view and provide it to anybody in the audience that's watching today or watches this. We get it off on Thursday. We'll quickly edit the footage down to usable with the diagram and provide it. But we were able to push an agenda forward, because my fear was if I didn't get the agenda pushed forward here, that it's really easy to say, July 1, what the hell? That's half of the summer in Colorado. Why not skip it? No need to gear back up to parks. And and not. And my feeling was, if it's not safe, I agree. But if we're safe as a Lowe's or a Walmart's or a nursery, then, and safer than, it would be my point, then we need to be up and running. And we need to have some proof of the pudding. And I tell you what I found was, my lawyer said, that's the most amicable call I've ever heard with 5 lawyers. Wanting to get a resolution, wanting to work on a solution, wanting to save face for the governor, wanting to get protocols. And so I would tell you, those of you in the outlying areas like us, or more in states that this process is harder to get through, or your counts are rough, this is a process we can follow. Our goal was to expedite Colorado's opening and use it to help other states open. Has anyone on this call right now in our panelists gone the route of the governor at this level? And it probably would be Mick or Jim, and you can put your thumb down if you didn't try it or you have tried something. Thumb up. And Scott did it, didn't. So the Texas people did. Greg didn't. Tony have applied some pressure. And guys, I would never suggest you apply any pressure but the right pressure. Completely safe, completely with the sentiment of the local area, and follow the protocols and excel at them, exceed them like you would a ball club. The next part, I'm going to walk you through a parent meeting that is probable. It's one I just ran for our program, which represents 4 travel teams, and I'll walk you through it. This is what we ran through. We presented to them, there's 3 sections to the summer and 1 to the fall. That right now we're in section 1, which is 3 weekends where we know there'll be no play. And with that, they can make some decisions. Section 2, we know there's going to be regional play on either Tuesdays with the league concept midweek and on weekends, but it may be in Wyoming where we're approved. And then July 1 through August 8 is our 3rd season, which is to play 4 or 5 competitive seasons or competitive events in that. And to understand that all 3 seasons will require potential schedule building yet to come. Meaning just say it up front. And that the fall would begin in August and end in November. And so that we would have 4 sections to our year, 3 in the summer, that are distinctly different. And what I hear from most of you is this is a very important tool. Our May 22nd, no games or tournaments, Memorial Weekend canceled, public health decision, practices on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and take your family on 4-day weekend. So we just gave them the green light to do something maybe they never ought to do at this time of the year in their life, which is go. Get these weekends back in your life and do something special with them. Then the next section was the local tournament. To have three weekends, we'll play local tournaments. I don't know there's anybody on the call that's going to play tournaments before this week. Maybe Greg. Maybe he has a June 1, 2, or May 30. Do you believe, Greg Schnutty, that there's an opportunity to play before this week?
Yeah, I think we're going to go over to Birmingham next weekend, and we're going to talk in his group and do some workouts. They have private fields like you do, and we're going to do that just to keep our kids active.
But not a tournament concept.
No.
Or still, and I think most of us are in this window, and I think this is real important to present it this way, because in all the uncertainty I presented to our team, I gave them some certainty in what their summer might look like. And yet I didn't have any firm dates other than the 4th of July out there. No overnight stays. So that took a lot of pressure off parents. Just say it right there. You don't need to worry about us putting your kid in a hotel or asking them to get in a hotel. We're going to go to and from in June. Go home, come back, go home, come back every night. And we could be in Wyoming, which is just 30 minutes away from us. We're working on what comes open. So if there's other things that come open, and we'd added our summer league, which I would tell you, we don't have that kind of talent you got, Scotty. And so we've invited our college players to come back and join into the summer league. And we've asked them as alumni, if they didn't get their fix and they didn't feel ready, that they're welcome, and we'll figure out how to either roster them as an independent roster or to put them into the existing rosters. But we're able to play a 1:30, 3:30, 5:30 game here, 2-hour slots. And then the 4th of July, And this is basically for all of you out there. The June 30th would be our evaluation day. We got no Division I's there. We got NAIs and JUCOs, Division IIIs doing the evaluation. And then we've got the potential of D2. Maybe is in a quieter, deader period. No one's quite sure exactly how this is going to work yet, but we know we don't have D1s. Then on July 1 would be our college camps for D1s, whether it's the Texas event, the Tennessee event, the Colorado event. We're asking our Division I coaches to frame the weekends. If it's a head coach from Nebraska to come, run their camp on Monday, watch 2 days, fly somewhere else, finish that tournament, and run a camp on the following Monday. All of our individual events would be on that July 1st. Our tournament itself would be the 2nd through the 5th. That'd be the actual game play. And again, we're telling people that drive into all these sites, be prepared to go to the end of Sunday night with 4 days of play. That's your first put them in a motel room process. And then the 6th would be college camps, academic games, and our CSE eval again. So we're framing the weekend with individual events for kids that need those kind of moments. We're taking the core tournament for 4 days and going hard. And so that gives us, and again, those are the Colorado, California, Texas, and Tennessee. If we lost California, then we would have to make a decision to transfer again teams back into either Colorado or have a site in the nearer area. And we're working on a site, Tony, for you guys in the nearer drive radius. That if you did want to get on a plane, or not a plane, get in your cars, how close can we get you and play this 4th of July? So that you can leave California and actually launch your season if your teams want to. Our 4 tournament weekends that out of the next 5, we've said we'll take the next 5 weekends to play in 4. We've said 1 big drive. You have to get your players there and housing and pay for it. I think this is a critical piece of this disease strategy, is that a parent and a kid in a motel room, parent and kid in the car, parent and kid making the decision is our new future. Because that protocol, Kevin brought it up in the very first panel, which is what am I going to do if somebody gets sick somewhere? Parent and kid in the car in a hotel room, the unit of decision making is doable. Choices of our big drive would be from California to Kansas City, meaning where can we get up at 6 in the morning and finish at 11 at night? Where are we at? Where did we get to? That's a drive radius tournament if we don't have to get on a plane. At least one would be some type of regional national tournament. And it could be with any governing body, meaning I think you got to throw away your cool cards here. I mean, we run one of them. And so if we got to play in somebody else's because we don't have a solution, the number one objective of our program is our team. And so our program is built to satisfy teams, and we're one of them. Triple Crown has 7 choices. We'll try to get to one of those ourselves. Some of the great ones, Myrtle Beach is going to be open, and that tournament's almost packed already. Atlanta's going to be open. That tournament's almost full. So you got those things. Austin's going to be great. So you got those moments. These other ones, we're on the ride and see bubble with everybody else in governing that's got a California championship or everything else. We need to see where it goes to announce where these are at. At least 3 for us would be local choices. So I'm going to just flip this over to Scotty right now and say, Scott, does that look like how you were thinking right now?
Yeah, I think the Kevin and I when we started down this path of talking, we had 2 words that were going to be real prevalent for us, which was creativity and flexibility. And I think what you just described as a concept for you guys created a lot of creativity in it and a lot of flexibility. It might mean you're having to drive to Wyoming to get that off. It might mean that Tony and them, because they can't play in California, have to drive to Nevada or someplace, whatever that might look like. But I think the cool part is, and I think Kevin and Tony both talked about this already, is just the creative things that are coming from this challenge. And I think that coming up with a creative schedule to make sure these kids get a chance to get on the field and play is the coolest part of it.
Last one I want to throw at you is one you don't want to see. Because you can get creative, but the minute the word school says we got to start earlier, we got to flip sports schedules like in Texas, we got a new set of parameters. So I would always keep that flexibility in your dialogue. And I'll throw that back to Kevin. In other words, if high school football flips to the winter, which is a conversation, and the other sports flip to the fall, what would it do to you if fall softball was now a conversation, Kevin?
Good question. We would still go full speed ahead with those kids who would be allowed to go, because we do the same thing in the spring. There are kids their coaches tell them you can't be involved with club. There are kids who don't ask the question, so the kids, and I make sure I tell them, I don't want you to lie to anybody, right? If your coach says you can't go, you can't go. If your coach doesn't care, great. If your coach didn't ask the question or mention it to you, then feel free to come out. We keep in mind that all the kids on our team are generally the best players on their team, so we can't get anyone hurt, and that's a focus of what we're doing as well. But we would have to, for those kids who needed recruiting, we'd have to figure something out. And to be fair, I have not put a ton of thought into that, because here in Texas, football is king, and I am 95% sure they're going to figure out a way to get on the field.
Well, and it's the only time you hear the word revenue sport in high school.
They're actually starting June. Football in Texas is actually going to start in June, Dave.
Okay, well, that's good. Practice schedules, I think, are important for all of you to grip. What are you doing with practice? There's an example of us. We're in 3 small groups of less than 10 that rotate through by the hour. We take 3 diamonds. We meet that 10 or less. We have a transition time between. This is something I would urge y'all to take a hard look at, is your own team camp. For 3 days, you go out there and we're at Fort Collins on our fields, get your private field, run it from 8 to 3, invite college coaches that are in that NAI JUCO window to run it for you. We're putting our college sports evaluation product in it on Wednesday with the college coaches to get a fit level for the kids to have some measurement in it. All the players in our program invited 10 or 15 more to round out the squads, but it's a way to do something inside this 10 or less on a complex that has college exposure, has training development, has a spring training kind of component to it. And I'm trying to plant a seed with each of you in innovation and ideas. And in other words, this is a remote concept. If you had to go somewhere, we usually held it in Steamboats, why it's called the Mountain Magic. But with Steamboat sentiment right now, they don't want us up there yet in June. And so it's a critical part of our program for our kids, is a 3-day deal where we don't have any real costs other than to get college coaches in to do the work. We have on-site directors, season ending. So either we're going to end in the National Drive Tournament in July or August, or we're going to end in Steamboat with a redo of our local Mountain Magic tournament. And so we've had to get creative. So almost all seasons end in the national tournament. We're actually saying ours might end in what our preferred spot to go is. A family, where families now can go with us and they feel comfortable in a destination, location, and we end it differently. So creativity again. Fall, tryouts tentatively July and August. We have a firm date every year. I don't know if it makes any sense to run July 8th as a tryout right now when we want to play the organized game and maybe until the middle of June. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but our fall schedule is totally unknown right now. We'll target some of the same regional strategy. We'll attempt to go where the best helps our program for placement. Our younger teams will definitely stay put. So I curved this with our younger parents saying, we're not going to be flying to California. We're not going to be doing this stuff this year. So you need to be okay with our local leagues and local solutions. Our 16s were undetermined. Our 18s will definitely focus on them and get them where they need to be. But all costs would need to be covered by the parents, which a lot of programs are. Ours are fee-driven up front, and then we spread it out. This year, not a choice, because we need to know the parents are with them and that funding vehicle's in place. Our team is a business, and I'm going to bring that through as our industry sports events is extremely challenged right now. And And that means it's financially, it will be strenuous for us and our staff for 6 to 8 months. Many of our staff coach. And so I try to explain to people here that our industry, if you're making your living on the table of our industry where your job comes from, this is a very challenging spot to be right now, and our staff and our coaches will be challenged. But we'll do what we can to financially work it out. And that means that our team needs to hear from us that they're deemed essential. If the government deems the grocery store essential, our team is essential to our business, that our TC team matters to us. Summary to us is there's 3 sections to the summer. They last 12 weeks. The first 3 weeks have no games. The next 3 weeks have local games. And then we do big tourneys for 6 weeks. That their costs right now will be changed to cover, and parents got to cover most of them. The guidance and decisions, the safety protocols will exist all year. We will be safe. Whatever the protocol, where we go, we'll follow it. Wherever we go, we'll follow it. Whether it's mask distancing, cleanliness, we'll follow it. And that governors and counties will still own the decisions everywhere we go, and every one of you still need to move this process. And so my parents immediately responded back and said, Dave, we might be more politically connected than you. And I said, then you need to write. And so we released a list of places to write in Colorado to reach out for them. And we said places we haven't even thought about. State House of Representatives, state Congress, get letters on the floor there and write from your standpoint that if we can be safe, let's play. If we can be safe, let's play. Which means we can expect our schedule to change more. And that roster movement could be back and forth between teams that players that can afford to go, or parents that are not afraid to go. This is a reality. Many decisions could be Monday of each week for the weekend once we start playing. The go, no go possibility. And basically that was a presentation we gave our kids going forward. I'm gonna get a couple wrap questions from you on how you're organizing your parents right now and how you're leading them forward. I'm gonna throw it over to Jim right now and say, Jim, how are you organizing your parents right now to move this thing forward?
It depends on each individual team. I've had Zoom meetings with most of the groups actually, and kind of discussed at their level what the importance is of where they go and how they do things. I know our 18s, my team, I had not one question about anything. They were like, hey, let's go. And kind of whatever you say, whatever we have to do for social distancing, however we make it work, let's make it work. You know, based on totally the number one thing is safety. We got to make sure our kids are safe, our families are safe. That's the number one thing. We left it as if families don't feel comfortable traveling, don't feel comfortable doing what we're doing, please don't do it. I encourage you not to do it if you're feeling that. But overall, we've had meetings with every single team, and it's gone very, very, very well. And you know what? Part of the thing is, Dave, all of your Friday press conferences here, we're getting a lot of our parents that are watching them. So it's triggered some great communication between myself and some of the parents and our coaches, and actually all the organizations in our area. And it's done a tremendous thing. So thank you very much for doing these. It's meant a lot to our sport and to our organization.
Well, thank you. Tony, I'm going to let you kind of wrap us up then from your standpoint. How are you leading your parents in what probably is arguably the largest softball market in the world in the toughest environment to get ready to play?
So we're meeting with our families once a week. We meet with our teams regionally and nationally once a week, just going over dialogue, trying to create reassurance and direction for them. I'm reminding people, Dave, that recruiting and playing games is one part of what we do. I mean, I'm going to call myself kind of an older person in the sport now, and reminding people that when we played Little League growing up, I played baseball, wiffle ball, something every day in my front yard, but I only played 16 games a year. We didn't have winter ball. We didn't have anything. I played baseball every day. So I'm reminding people to remember that the experience of softball isn't centered around recruiting and tournaments. I get the business. We're involved in business, but there's a lot of great things. I really like hearing what Jim has to say about the emergence of some things and maybe some rebalancing, playing catch with your kid, just having fun. You know, the experience of softball and why are we playing this? We always talk about these bigger concept pictures, but to remind people that there's still a lot of good things that we could do to enjoy the sport. Yeah, getting creative. But has anybody ever hit a paper wad inside a hotel room, or, you know, as paper wad baseball or anything? So just reminding people to stay balanced, you know, the important aspects of the business, the recruiting, the events, when that's ready to go, we're ready to go. But until then, we're going to continue to make the most out of the time that we have and grow the things that we need to grow into.
Okay, folks, with that said, I want to thank our panelists again. We're going to stay on as panelists for just a little bit ourselves and talk about what's the next step and information to you. I'm mentally and physically exhausted on the things that we do as a company and as a team right now. So I count on all of you to keep me re-energized and pointed forward. But I thank you all for being a part and sharing the best practices of our industry. So thank you on our YouTube group. We'll sign off now with YouTube. I'd like my panelists to stay on for 2 or 3 minutes.